We go.
All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our bi-monthly Builders Call. This happens the first and third Tuesday of each month at 9 a.m. Pacific. And the purpose of the conversation here is for anyone that is interested on the scale of interested all the way to the scale of committed to building an organization here with EXP. So everyone's welcome into the conversation. It doesn't matter if you've got mad skills in a huge organization or if you're brand new and building an organization is something that is appealing to you and you want to learn the skill set and the mindset of how to do. So our topic for today, for those of you that I might be meeting for the first time, my name's Casey, Council-Geha, and we've been running this call, I don't know, for years now, and find that it's valuable to stay in the game and in the conversation and constantly sharpening iron and sharpening skills around that. At the end of the day, we're in a relationship business, right? And so our ability to impact relationships, build connections, establish trust, use influence, and provide people with opportunity is what we're about. So when I think about the context of leadership, the job of a leader is to provide hope. Hope that tomorrow can be better than today. And then after you provide hope, that you now have an opportunity that goes with that to make that possible, to make tomorrow actually better than today. And along with opportunity, you've got to have a system and a plan in place that anyone could go execute and realize the opportunity that they want to realize within that vision. And so that is really, I mean, if you look at the 25,000 foot view of what we're doing here, that's what we're about. And for those of you that may be coming to the call for the first time, my husband, late husband, Rick Geha, and I joined EXP in January of 2017 because we had a picture painted that was one of hope. It was one where we could take the next 5 to 7 years of our lives and create and make up for what had happened in the previous 30 and be at a spot where we were starting way behind the 8 ball later in life with literally 7 figures of debt and no assets and starting over. And so that was the plan of EXP and how working and building within this community and selling real estate here and helping other people thrive was the hope that was offered and a vehicle and a very clear path of how to do that. And so 7, almost 8 years later, the organization that you're all a part of, called Empire Builders Pro, spans 49 different states around the United States and to 14 different countries around the world, and close to 3,300 agents right now that are with us and part of our community. So our topic for today is, I don't even remember what it is. And actually, I'll be honest, I went to bed last night thinking about on these calls, it's always, what do I feel inspired by, right? Because anybody can go to Chat GPT and throw some stuff in there and build a class and then talk about the talking points off Chat GPT, but that's not necessarily inspiring or relevant. And so I did this morning on my walk. I was out walking. I'm like, what is the thing and that I think is common for every single person that they're going to run up against? Without exception, everybody's going to run up against this. And it is the objections. It's the objections that we have within ourselves, and then the objections that and so as I was thinking about that today out on my walk, I'm like, oh, this is the call for today. So I always like, man, I hope the moment of inspiration and getting clear on what I feel inspired to talk about comes before the actual call so I can promote the darn thing. So it was like an hour and a half today before that happened. But for those of you that always get the messages, sometimes an hour and a half before the call happens, or even like sometimes 30 minutes before the call happens, that's usually because that's a result of me being like crystal clear on what's going to be the most valuable thing today and stepping into that. So the calls will always be at 9 a.m. And that is the variety with where you see of how that happens. So the call topic for today, and I didn't even remember what it is, but when it came out, I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Oh yeah, the psychology of objection handling and recruiting. So let's start off with and we're going to make this engaging in audience participation. And so just come off mute or put it in the chat. When you think about objections that you either had personally coming in the process of you being recruited to EXP, or objections that you face in conversations with other people, or ones that you're afraid you're going to get and you're not exactly sure how to deal with or address that? What are some of those?
I just run into so much fear, Casey, about leaving the previous brokerage and what's being offered and having to recreate systems or being not familiar with systems. And for the people I've been talking to, it's extraordinarily paralyzing for them.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. And then in the chat, we've got, I'm happy where I am. And when they have a big organization, Victoria, when they have a big organization, is that more around the logistics of moving a large organization of people, or tell me more about that? Yes. Okay. I love it. All right. What are some other objections?
Commission splits.
Okay. Commission splits. Tell me more about that.
I'm at a 100% brokerage
Okay, great.
for 10% only. 90-10.
Okay, fantastic. We'll definitely address that. What else? I'm at 100%. Yeah.
Lower cap.
A lower cap somewhere else. Okay. Lower cap. I haven't been able to attract to KW or people from KW.
He's actually at KW and he would be amazing. He's got like awesome energy. And at one point he was like all in, just needed to close out a deal, which was going to be like in 3 weeks. And then he said, well, why would I want to come for that? Because I haven't been able to bring anybody over to KW, and that's where he's at. So he just doesn't know how. But once he figures it out, he'll be really good.
Okay, so no experience. Okay, great. What else? All right, well, if you guys come up with more, you can stick them in the chat or come off mute at any point. So I am going to suggest that the couple of things. Number one, I want you to write this down. Objections indicate interest. Objections indicate interest. And so when we're talking about the psychology of objections, a lot of times we think, oh, well, if it's an objection, it means that there isn't interest or that somebody's resistant to, or no. Objections indicate interest. So let that sink in for a moment. The very first piece of psychology around handling objections is how you view objections yourself. So would your relationship to them change if you got your arms wrapped around the fact that objections indicate interest and how you go into it? So then if an objection indicates interest, what is it really?
They need to learn more.
They need to learn more. Yep.
Almost like a question.
Okay, great.
Fear of change.
Could be fear of change, could be fear of change. Absolutely. They don't know what they don't know. Yeah. So I'm going to sum it up by saying that when objections indicate interest and they have not moved here, they do not have a clear vision. So think about any time that you've had a really clear vision for yourself in your life. That could have been the house that you want to buy, to the person that you want to date, to the next car that you're going to purchase. And when you have had a very clear vision on what that is, and you can feel what it would be like to live in that house, to be with that person, to be driving that car, and you're living in the experience of it already because you can feel it, is there anything that's going to keep you from making it happen? No, there's nothing that's going to make you keep it from happening. So So our role, if we start to think about objections indicating interest, and that if someone's got objections, their vision isn't big enough yet to have put that together, we can start to look at and think about people differently. So I'm going to suggest that while everyone here is on this call today, that you all are in this position as well, that you all have objections to building an organization. Would you agree? So let's be honest, share what some of those objections are.
I would say sometimes, at least for one agent, or like the the luxury aspect of it, or like the recognition, like a compass or something like that. We have EXP luxury, but which is good. I like it, but I'm just saying, I do kind of, because I have a lot of friends who are like compass agents, things like that, and so sometimes they feel like, that brand is more luxury.
Okay, cool. So we'll put that on the objection list of ones to work through. And then let's pivot back to every single one of you that's on the call today is here and you want to build an organization, and you either haven't done that, or you haven't done that in a way that you know is possible for you, or you're just getting your feet wet and starting to do that. And there's some energy of like, that you're not 100% in, because there's things that are holding you back, or things that you're allowing yourself to get distracted by, or avoidant behaviors that you're engaging in instead of doing the things that are going to build and grow an organization, which would indicate that all of you have objections on some level.
I think, Casey, for me, it's maybe I haven't done it enough. Like, I still need to learn more.
Okay.
And the other thing too is I come from the business of selling cars, so I tend to give too much information, and sometimes I overwhelm people, so I become very salesy. That's my problem.
Okay. Love it. So you
So I
have some
need to learn more.
things to unlearn and then relearn.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. All right. And then we've got Zach that put in the chat the value proposition of EXP versus similar brokerages, for example, fully understanding the revenue share changes, and getting your arms wrapped around those. Okay, cool. So let's back up to the initial objection, which is that every single one of us has an objection, and it shows up in the form of reluctance to pick up the phone and have that conversation, or to put ourselves out there and begin that dialogue. Has anybody ever felt that besides me? So that is a form of an objection. So what is it that you think you're objecting to when you have resistance or reluctance to do that?
I personally don't feel prepared. I feel like in my nurturing way, when I deal with people and my clients, I want to take on the same aspect with the agents that I bring on. And at some capacity, thinking, oh, 1,500 people, how do I wrap my arms around them? What do I give them when they come? I just don't want them floundering in the wind, because I do hate when people say, oh, I came to EXP and nothing happened. And it's like, oh, well, who was your sponsor? Who was your person? Why didn't they keep in touch with you? And I have this overwhelming sense of the future of how do I maintain? How do I keep them involved? How do I keep them engaged? Like, it's my personal responsibility to make them love EXP. I don't know if that's a thing.
Okay. So in the not feeling prepared and taking on responsibility that's not yours, you don't engage. Yeah. Okay. So, and I'm guessing that there's not anybody that's on this call that cannot identify with the reluctance of reaching out to another person. And here is the psychology of what's actually happening. It is a fear of rejection of you personally.
Mm.
It is a fear of being told no. It is a fear of, oh my goodness, what if they're not happy? Their happiness is my responsibility. Lisa, you just said that. And so all of a sudden, before we even get into the conversation with someone else, our own psychology around objections has us stop dead in our tracks because of what we're objecting to for ourselves and not be in a conversation with someone else. I think about how Brent Gove got recruited to EXP. It was from somebody that didn't even know him, that had met him in passing at an event and gotten his business card. And she is his sponsor in EXP because she did one thing. And so when we talk about the psychology of overcoming objections and what there is for you to do with you, it is don't make it about yourself. If you're making it about yourself in any way, shape, or form, you are never going to have the conversation with someone else. You are never going to put yourself out there. You're never going to create a space for someone's going to say no to you. You're never going to even enter that conversation if you're making it about yourself. Yet here we all are because we have an interest in building an organization. So how do we handle this first objection, which is call reluctance or conversation reluctance, because of me ultimately feeling like I'm going to be rejected or take on responsibility that's not mine, and put that to the side and go, oh, that's very interesting. That is a story that I'm making up. And is that story going to serve me in creating what I want to create, or is it going to hold me back in creating what I want to create? At the end of the day, if you're going to go build an organization, if you're going to recruit and attract agents, it's going to be because 100% you are coming from service. 100%. When you are coming from service, there is no place for it to be about you. There's no place for it to be about me. Right? So the number one thing before you ever enter into a conversation, before we're looking at the objections and or interest that's going to come from other people, is getting your own head straight about the fact of, if I'm going to go into a conversation that's going to be a recruiting conversation, that I am 100% being of service to this person in their life and in their business. And notice I said in their life and in their business, because it's not just business. So we're looking at the human as a whole. And when I'm picking up the phone or reaching out, I am on a treasure hunt. This is the mindset. I am on a treasure hunt to find out how I can be 100% of service to that person. And if it means that they come to EXP and they're working together with us as partners in our organization, and that happens down the road, then that's what that means. However, it doesn't mean that for every conversation. And if that's not what happens down the road, it doesn't mean anything about me. And it doesn't mean anything about you, unless you're going to make it mean something about you. So there's this whole relationship that has to do with ego. Some people have referred that, for those of you that are faith-based, ego stands for edge God out. It's like, I'm so important. I have this image. I have this brand. I don't want to tarnish it. I don't want to get the no. I don't want this. I don't want that because of how I will feel if that happens. Like, get over yourself. Get over yourself. Nobody's britches are that big, right? Not mine, not yours, not anyone. So if now we look at this, like going into this conversation, and then the different things, I want you to write down these things because they're at the core of every single objection that you're going to get. Number one, and some of you addressed it, is fear of change. There's a very small percent of the population that gets excited about change because they equate that with growth and opportunity. And if you look and study behavioral styles, it's about 7% of people. So 7 out of every 100 people that you talk to are going to be jazzed about change and opportunity. The other 93 are like, oh my gosh, change. It's disruptive. It is, confusing. It's going to set me back. What am I losing, right? Like, there's a fear of change for most people, even if they're not happy, if they're at a dead end opportunity, and if they don't have growth and hope on the horizon. It's like, oh my gosh, well, the devil that I know is better than the one that I don't. And people actually think like this. A lot of people think like this. They'll be like, well, I'll just, hang and stick with what is, because that is not as bad as any potential change that I could possibly go through. So number one, fear of change. This is really important to understand in the psychology of objections. So when someone said they have an objection like commission, or I've got a team, or the systems, or la 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 la, that is not the actual objection. These are the things that sit under them that are important for you to understand so that you can relate to the human, not to the objection. Because what people say is very rarely what they actually mean. It's the thing that sits on top that will have them be not being vulnerable, right? So imagine like you're in a conversation with someone and they're just sort of like, well, you know, I love my broker and I'm happy here, and you know, the people I work with are great, and every now and then I get a referral from the office, and you're like, and what's your future look like, and what's going to be different, you know, 1, 3, 5 years from now if you keep doing the same thing in the same way that you're doing it. And then they go, right? Because they're going to say all of that other stuff versus, you know what? I am so afraid of actually changing what I'm doing because I'm afraid that I might not succeed or do better somewhere else. And so I will stay here where I know the landscape and I can navigate the landscape. Nobody's going to get that vulnerable and tell you that unless they're a really unique human being, because most people are not going to be willing to go that deep with you. So you need to understand what's going on behind all these objections. So number 1, fear of change. Number 2, loss of control. And this is going to be more when you're talking with brokers, you know, small independents, people that have worked within a franchise model or franchise owners, because they're going to be, you know, I mean, Rick was like that. He ultimately, you know, he owned 9 Keller Williams offices, and they didn't want him speaking, training, or coaching for anybody that wasn't a Keller Williams agent. And he was like, oh no, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'll speak and train and coach to whoever I want in the real estate industry, right? So when he came to EXP, like loss of control was a driving factor, right? To not be able to pursue his passions. That loss of control was a driving factor that had him change. And he didn't go from Keller Williams to EXP. He went from Keller Williams to a small independent that had 2 agents. 2. There was a friend of his, and he was there for 2 years before he was at EXP, because he wanted to do what he knew how to do, which was sell real estate, rebuild his sales team, speak, coach, and train wherever the heck he wanted to, whoever he wanted to do it with. Right? So fear of change, number 1, loss of control, number 2. Number 3, misperceptions. Misperceptions are going to drive objections all day long. And so it's really important when you're having conversations with people and they say, yeah, I know about EXP, or I've been talked to about EXP, or la la la. I will always ask someone, tell me what you know. And what's your understanding? Like, based on everything you've been exposed to, what are the things that are the most intriguing to you? And what are the things that are potential roadblocks for you? And 9 times out of 10, when I have a conversation with someone, they don't even actually know what the model is or the impact of the model in their business. So misperceptions is number 3, and it's really important, like, that you flush out from when someone says, like, if somebody says to me, oh, I know all about EXP, I'm like, not if you haven't talked to me. You know nothing, right? This is like my mindset, the psychology that I go into. If someone's like, yeah, I've been in conversation with EXP, I know about EXP. I say 80-20 split to $16,000, and you've got stock options, and you guys can, get revenue share. It's like, okay, what else? Right? So I want to know from their mouth to my ears. I do not assume that they know anything. As a matter of fact, I assume they're not clear, even if they think they know something. So misperceptions is number 3. Number 4, past experience. Past experience is going to source an objection for some people. And we get this, quite often. Oh, well, in my marketplace, EXP is blah, 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 because there's this obnoxious agent or agents that have blah, blah, blah. And so they're basing their experience of EXP on something that's not firsthand, it's secondhand, right? And this is where an objection can come from. Or maybe they've been at EXP and left, and you're in a conversation with someone that did have a past experience, which I'm always interested and intrigued to hear. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they didn't get plugged in or they chose not to plug in, right? So, but understanding past experience can drive that. Peer influence is another one that's going to drive an objection. So what other people think, right? And this came into this conversation around the luxury conversation of someone that, you know, is at a, you know, perceived luxury brand, and what that, like, is it gonna, are they gonna be perceived the same? What the marketplace is gonna think of them? And so peer influence is driving it. So when someone says that luxury presence, luxury brand, you need to understand the psychology of what's driving that is not the luxury thing. It's like, how am I going to be seen? How am I going to grow my business? How am I going to position as a luxury agent in the marketplace within the context of EXP? And that peer influence and that perception, that visibility is really important for that person. It's not of, does EXP have a great luxury brand or a better luxury brand? It is going to be the impact for them. The next thing is the risk versus benefits. Right. So this is where we get into people that are like, oh, you know, I'm at 100% shop. And why would I go to, you know, paying a split when I don't have to pay a split because I'm at 100% shop right now? And so this is on the leader. Remember, I started off this conversation by saying the role of a leader is to offer hope, to create opportunity, and then have a clear path for people to execute those opportunities to make them their own. I have yet to speak to anyone in 100% shop that has a 3 to 5 year exit plan or strategy, or even the possibility to create one. I have yet to talk to somebody at 100% shop that has an excited hope for the future of their business and their life because their lifestyle is improving as their business grows. I have yet to talk to someone at 100% shop that has any kind of long-term exit strategy, even in the conversation or in the horizon. Because in a risk versus benefits conversation, you're talking to somebody who is in scarcity around, how do I keep my dollars and trip over dollars that will keep me from getting to freedom and liberty. So in a risk versus benefit conversation, you need to understand the psychology going behind that, which is, I need every single penny. They're not thinking about what the ultimate impact of where their time goes, the return on that time, energy, and effort, and what that's going to mean a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, if they're selling something at 100% shop versus having the opportunity to build things here while they sell. And then the last one is need for validation. So fear of change, number 1, loss of control, number 2, misperceptions, number 3, past experience, number 4, peer influence, number 5, risk versus benefits, number 6, and the need for validation, number 7. And every single objection that you're going to get is going to be driven by one of these human needs. And as you get great in these conversations, you're going to be able to identify which human need is being driven. And once you know what that need is, you'll be able to respond to it in a different way. And when you settle or satisfy that emotional component for someone, then those objections that were interest anyway no longer have the resistance behind them, and they become interest that turns into activity where someone will move forward. I always say you're never going to recruit anybody, they're going to recruit themselves, right? And Lisa, if you've sold cars, you're not actually going to sell somebody the car, they're going to sell themselves, right? And this is the important thing to know. We take this and it's like, instead of us thinking that we're going to make somebody do something by how we're going to show up, what we're going to say or not say, do or not do, at the end of the day, people are always going to be deciding for themselves. So let's dig into a couple of these things in specific, right? Before we do that, I'm going to pause for any comments, thoughts, questions, feedback, or things you might be thinking about. Frank, come on
Hi,
up.
good morning. Yeah, so I have 6. I have number 1, fear of change. Number 2, loss of control. 3, misperception. 4, past experience. 5, risk versus benefits. And then I have number 6, need for validation.
Yep, peer influence was before risk versus
Oh.
benefits.
Got it. Peer influence. Got it. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, anyone else before we move on? And is Zach still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna jump into specifically your question first. So, and I'm gonna model the behavior that I talked about. So here I am in conversation with Zach. The thing that he put in the chat was understanding and being clear on, what's the difference between RevShare 1.0 and 2.0 and how that, what the impact of that is. So from a starting point, Zach, are you in a position where you can be in a dialogue with me for a bit?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I know you've got littles around there.
Well, because my wife is due on a Friday. So my induction date's Friday. So my honey-do list is a little obnoxious. So I'm sitting here like listening right now, like trying to like declutter the upstairs with my like volume turned all the way up.
I love it. Okay, so let's start off. Tell me what you do know about RevShare 2.0.
Let's just say nothing, Casey, because I apparently have been pitching RevShare incorrectly. And even after like meeting with you, I still don't fully understand the difference between us and some of our competitors on this because like I feel like I'm dumb, quite frankly, because I'm like, what am I not grasping about this? Because it used to be I would say, hey, I recruit you, Casey, $2,800 a year is my potential if you're a capper. Done. But apparently that was not correct now, and I don't get it, and I don't understand the difference. And we used to have really cool stuff that we created around all this, and there's something not clicking in my brain.
Okay, cool. So, would it be of value for me to walk through how I language the value proposition of EXP when I'm in conversation with the prospect?
Definitely.
Okay, so I'm going to do that right now with you, Zach, and I'm going to use the Empire Builders Pro website as the resources for that so that you can hear what that language is. So for all of you, you're part of our organization. EmpireBuilders.pro is the name of the organization. It's also the name of the website. So Zach, I'm not gonna make it a dialogue back and forth. I'm gonna more get in what it is that I would say so that you guys can get the word tracks down and just how I walk through that conversation with people. All right? Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, cool. So under attraction and recruiting and why join us, my experience with people is if I have a conversation about what EXP offers in the absence of a visual for them to actually physically be looking at something, they are not going to retain it. It's not going to sink in. So I will always bring someone to this page to have a conversation about the financials of what it looks like to be an agent at EXP. Now, before I go through the specifics of that, I want to come off of, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and say this, is that there is a great resource, and Selena, will you put it in the chat? It is the 5 different stages of a real estate agent's life. It's done by Russ Lagan, and he's part of the growth team with EXP. It's an amazing conversation opener to get people thinking differently about their business. But I always just like to start and say, and I'll ask someone, hey, listen, why did you get into the business to begin with? And for most people, it was, this idea of freedom, which is actually turns out being flexibility, right? And then for however many years they've been in the business, their experiences, let's talk about the life cycle of an agent is just that you're going to learn how to be a great agent and sell real estate and increase the amount of real estate that you sell so that you're providing for your family. And that is, essentially that phase 1. Phase number 2, you're going to have more business than you can possibly handle yourself. And so you may look at building a sales team to get some leverage and do that, thinking that you're going to get, higher quality of life, more time. And that rarely happens for people because now you've got a whole organization of people besides yourself. And then the next phase that someone will go through is where they'll go from that into looking at how do I get even more leverage and possibly, open up my small, an independent or franchise. But what nobody ever thinks about the day that they get in real estate is what's the quality of life that I'm going to have in this career that I'm choosing, and what is going to be my long-term exit strategy, period, at all, if I can. And most people, we know that that's not part of the conversation because you don't see agents retire, really. You don't see retirement parties for realtors. They most often are not in a position to stop selling real estate. They're not out there doing it because they still love it when they're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. They're out there still doing it because that's what life's calling for, right? So number one, if we're going to be in a conversation about EXP, this is foundational that we're going to start thinking differently about your business and about your life, and really about designing a life and a business where anything is possible. And that's going to require that we think differently than any other place that you've been at before, where you think in the way that you think, which is growing your production business and maybe building a sales team, as you grow in your business, and maybe ultimately a brokerage. So if we're thinking about beginning with the end in mind, Michael Covey would always, no, not Michael Covey, not John Michael Covey. Who is it? Stephen Covey. It's like the first personal development book that I read when I was in my early 20s, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, beginning with the end in mind. Let's talk about what the end looks like for your real estate business and your career. And I get that right now, today is important to you, but what is that end result that you're looking to create? There you go. You've got it right there. 7 Habits right on the shelf. And so before I get to the nuts and bolts of how EXP is going to be a solution for that, I want to get them thinking in a different way. If they haven't read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, to understand getting, the cash flow quadrant, how we move through that, and really get them thinking about building something versus selling, right? Your typical agents, like, I know that my job is to provide hope, opportunity, and a clear path to get it, right? So while most brokerages are out there like, hey, let us help you take your sales business to the next level or help you sell more houses. Okay, yes, that is a part of the conversation, but it's not the conversation. And you may think it's the conversation until you wake up one day and it doesn't matter how much that listing is. You're not going to want to go take it on a Saturday morning because you're going to want to be doing something else. So what have you planned for? Right? So this is all the before we get to the actual conversation about EXP, and here are the financials. So here's how I describe it. To a newer agent that's just getting into the business, one of the things that's important, and I'll say, here is everything that you're looking at from a financial perspective about what it means to be an agent with EXP Realty. And the important thing is that what you're going to have access to and what you're going to get is probably going to be far more than you're ever going to plug into and use in the entirety of your career, and will keep outgrowing it along the way. So quite possibly this could be the last move you make, the last change you make in your business life, in real estate and career, because of what you would be moving into. So already when I'm saying that, I'm addressing one of the fears of change, right? Because what if this is the last change that they ever need to make? Because they're able to build out a career and a life here that is just unbelievable. And then we show them how to do that. So here's the great thing. If an agent's not selling that much, let's say you're doing a few transactions a year, 5, 6, 7 transactions a year. The great news is you're not coming out of pocket anything other than $85 a month, which is incredible, because you have nothing that you will ever pay to the company outside of $85 a month until you're in an actual physical transaction. And then I use a second visual. And then the next question is automatically, well, what am I getting for that $85 a month? And I find that the visuals are the most powerful things ever. And so then I will share this, and I'll have Selena put this link in the chat so that you all get it. So the next natural question is, what am I getting for my $85 a month? And here's what you're getting for your $85 a month. And I'll say to them in the conversation, I'm not going to go through every single one of these links, but here is what the $85 a month gets you. First off, it's going to get you 9 free lead generation sources. And the success of a real estate agent is based on their ability to lead generate and the leads that will come to you. So here's 9 free lead generation sources. And then I'll talk a little bit about the tech stack and what's available in the tech stack. So included in your $85, we've got all of the marketing and branding. You get Canva Pro for free, workplaces, you know, exactly like Facebook, except for it's only for EXP agents. The value of that is we have an agent in our organization that joined in October of 2023, and by October of 2024, she had received 6 deals that she had closed that were in agent referrals, because we are agent owners in the company and we're incentivized to pass business. Why am I sharing that? Because it's business that they may not be getting if they're at a little brokerage that does business locally, right? We are a national brokerage. We're a global company. So that's an important thing that I like to highlight. Sky slopes how you're going to get paid and where your transactions go, and then all of the back office things that you'll receive there. The training. Here's what you're going to get from the company, all kinds of different training, and depending on where an agent's at in their journey, I will share this fast cap program and just say, one of the biggest values to you as an agent, if you haven't been out of production or you're just getting into production, on average in this 60-day program that is free, included in your $85, is an average of 3, for every person that's in that, an average of 3 contracts within those 60 days. So if you're serious about doing business and getting it off the ground and going and getting your cap so you get 100% of your commission faster, that's a really important place for you to plug in. Then there's all of these other things that I'm not necessarily talking about if they're not relevant to them, depending on the agent. One of the biggest things is support. So in addition to the support from me, from Selena, from all the different people that I will mention that are part of their support team, and who's ever in that conversation with them, here's the company support. Might be, and I like to highlight at this point, you know, this will be a different experience for you more than likely, because on average from the company wide, from closing to getting paid is 18 minutes. 18 minutes from the time your deal closes till the time you get paid your commission. And that is company wide for EXP right now. So the level of support that you're going to have in having that happen and from the company is unmatched. And then all of the things, if you want to specialize, that are going to be, you know, add-ons that sit over here. But all of that's going to come for $85 a month, whether you sell a house or whether you don't sell a house, you have access to all of that. So them seeing that is enough to go, oh my goodness, wow, that is a lot for my $85. So then I will walk through the next piece of the conversation, which is, okay, let's say now it is time for you to, you're in a transaction, and that, how does the money work once you're in the transaction? And so I'll go right back to those slides and very simply share. Why is that not coming up for me now? There it is. I'll share, okay, now you're in a transaction. There's going to be $60 taken out of your transaction to pay your E&O insurance. Once you've done enough deals to cap at $750 for the year, you pay no more in E&O insurance. And there's a $25 per file broker fee that you're going to pay to the company. So basically $85 in addition to your $85 a month that you're going to pay. Those are your fees. That's what's going to cost you to be an agent at EXP. And then I'll talk about this, because this down here is the thing that's key for people. And I'll put it like this, that there is a roadmap for growth and an incentive for you to be a productive agent, and incentives for us to help you create and produce at whatever level you want in your real estate business, because of the additional perks that you're going to get for doing that. So most agents are trained to look at, you know, splits and evaluate something on a split. Well, okay, it's an 80-20 to cap. Well, I'm at 100% shop. Yes, but remember, the conversation that we're in is not about splits and fees. The conversation that we're in is about building something and what is going to be the net effect for you building your business here on your life and your future, versus a split and a fee, right? So do we have splits and fees? Yes, but that's not the conversation. What is the net impact of you selling real estate and being a productive agent here? So yes, 80-20 to cap, and then you can see those change if someone's on a team or on a mega team. And if it's not appropriate, I don't go into all of those, but I'll stick to what's relevant for whoever is on the call. And then I'll say the beautiful thing about the 80-20 cap is really you have an ability to be at 100% with EXP. Every agent has an ability to be at 100% with EXP. And that is, once you hit your cap, an additional 20 sides or 500,000 in GCI qualifies you for the Icon Award. Now there's 3 parts to that and I don't go into it, but I'll just high level say if you want the details of what that looks like, I'll get them to you, but you have the ability to do that. So you've got stock now that has to vest. And this is all of the vested stock, meaning it stays with the company. You can't cash it out, but you've got something building in the background for you for your future. The other ways that you earn free stock is your first transaction and then is 200. And when you cap at it needs to be a full cap at 16,000, you get 400 in stock and 400 in stock. If you have somebody that has come to the company, named you as their sponsor, and they close their first deal, then you can do the 5%. And I tell the 5% story of an agent that's on our sales team, and you can tell the 5% story as well. So in January of 2017, when Rick came to EXP, he came with, you know, a gal that had been in the business. Well, today she's been in the business over 30 years as a full-time cardiac care nurse. And she does 6 to 12 deals a year because she's got a full-time gig. And she signed up for that program where at every closing, she had 5% of her commission withheld at a discounted stock amount and discounted whatever the current value was. And by the end of 2020, going into 2021, that was the end of 3 years later, she was going through some tough times and logged in to see what was there because she'd forgotten about it actually. And there was close to $400,000 she could have cashed out that day. So if you're an agent that wants to make it about being at 100% shop, like you're never going to have anything outside of your commission. If you're an agent, you know, and that's fine, like you'll get what you get. But here we are creating opportunities for people to build something. And I love that we've got a couple of things that you know, popped into the chat. Down payment, Zach's down payment on his cabin came from the 5%. Yep. Our down payment here came, from that 5% as well. Okay, so that is the agent, what it means to be an agent. And then if someone goes, okay, well, how does the revenue share piece work? And how do I describe that to someone of how that actually works or get my head wrapped around it? And so for that, I'm going to bring up not that one, this one. And this is all in a link that Selena will put in the chat as well for RevShare 2.0. So here's how revenue share works, Zach, is here's your 80-20 split to $16,000. So I always give an actual live example. Let's say it's a $10,000 commission. EXP is going to keep $2,000 of that. $8,000 goes towards you, the agent. You, the agent, are going to pay your $85 a month plus your $60 in E&O and your $25 file broker review fee. EXP's $2,000 is the right-hand side of this visual where they're going to keep 50% of that, which is $1,000. And then they're going to pay out the other 50%, which is $1,000 in revenue share to the company. Well, how does revenue share get paid out? Revenue share gets paid out through, and I explain it just like a family genealogy. And here is the family genealogy slide. So revenue share gets paid out on this far right-hand side. So if you took $1,000, Zach, and you divided it through these 7 different, that $1,000, 17% of the 17.5% of the $1,000 is going to go to tier 1. 20% of the $1,000 is going to go to tier 2, and wherever the agent sits in your organization is the percentage of revenue share that gets paid out to you when that agent closes a deal. So that's how it flows through. I think that's kind of complicated. So I just like to share a more simple slide, which is, and those are the actual, for somebody that's, you know, very analytical and wants to see all that stuff, that's how that actually works. But for the majority of people, it's going to work to keep it more high level because it's easier to get your head wrapped around. And that is, if we go back to the Empire Builders Pro site, and Selena already put it in the chat. Oops, share. Here we go. Under attraction and recruiting, under the EXP FAQs. And you scroll down. That's what revenue share looks like. So for every capping agent under Rev Share 1.0, that said $2,800. But if we go back to that pie chart, of that $2,800, 50% the company kept, which was $1,400, and 50% went out in revenue share, which is the $1,400. So that it was up to $2,800 is what it was before. And because there's bonuses that get paid on these first 3 tiers now, this can be a lot more. So there's exceptions to this. In the first year that someone comes on and they're a capping agent, it's now up to $4,000 per agent that you personally sponsor in their first year. But tiers 1 through 3 get a bonus. So let's say that in my organization, I have somebody on tier 3 that leaves the company. And let's say it's you, Zach. Let's say you're on my tier 3. And let's say, Zach, that you've got 50 agents that populate my tier 4, 5, and 6, and you leave the company and you leave these 50 agents. So these 50 agents are still here on my tier 4, 5, and 6, which means there's revenue share. And there is revenue share that would get paid into the position, your position, but you're no longer at the company, so you're not getting that revenue share. EXP takes the revenue share that would go into your position previously on tier 3, and they put it into a bonus pool for the entire company that gets paid out on the first 3 levels based on how much there is every month. So these numbers are at minimum of what you would have per capping agent in revenue share. And why is this more competitive than other cloud-based models that are out there? Because other cloud-based models are showing the non-buffered numbers. They're showing the 2,800, they're showing the 3,200, but what they're actually paying out is half of that if they're 50% of company dollar.
Okay, that's the part that gets me, Casey. And then when you're talking about non-buffered numbers and like getting half of the 2,800, like I feel like I need to go like all the way back at my revenue share and like look at every agent I've had, because I feel like I've gotten more than $1,400 from an agent in a year. And
You
that's
have, and it's because of the bonuses.
but I'm not talking about 2.0, I'm talking about 1.0.
And you would have.
Okay, and I guess that's the part that it's just confusing to me when we're talking about buffered numbers. That's the part that didn't click with me. Is now we're talking about, you know, another brokerage. We're talking about buffered numbers and this and that. I mean, I feel like there's a much simpler way to put this. And maybe I'm the stupid one. I don't know. But I feel like it's very convoluted now since 1.0, when I used to just be like $2,800 a month, and now it's like now if it's just 1,400, I can say, hey, it's just 1,400, but there's these additional bonuses that you can get. But you know, I always like to create stuff to the lowest common denominator, and I feel like it's gotten convoluted in my opinion.
Yeah, so before the $2,800 a month was the whole 20% going to EXP. It didn't account for company dollar and rev share being split out of it. And because there was bonuses, it could have been more, but these numbers now are the numbers for rev share 2.0. And so it is that this is how you look at it.
Okay, and that's an easy thing. I just, you know, with the buffering, and there's a typo on your thing here, and I don't want to call it out, but it's right above. It still says 3,200 and 2,800 above this, right there.
I refresh. I've already fixed it.
Okay,
And
cool. I just want to make sure. Thank you, Selena.
thank you for finding that.
I am that guy. All right, cool. That makes sense, Casey. It's just simpler now, and it's like, you know, and obviously with not needing personal agents, which is cool, you know, because you could recruit an all-star that recruits 50 people. You know, previously we wouldn't have gotten paid on that. So this is pretty cool.
Yeah, there's 2 things about it. So number 1, if you're looking, just to make it really simple, if you're looking at other companies and they say this is what we pay out, well, the numbers that they're showing is not the full payout. They're showing out the company dollar amount, not the actual amount that gets paid out in rev share. So this is the actual amount that gets paid out in rev share that you're looking at EXP. So there's two things about that. Number one, first 3 levels are open. Number two, if you cap each year, you open up levels 1 through 5 now with rev share 2.0. So if you're a capping agent, you pay your 16,000 into the company. That means you get paid on all revenue share in your first 5 levels for the next 13 months. And then when you icon now with EXP, it opens up all 7 levels for the next 13 months of revenue share versus there being FLQA requirements of needing to have 5 agents, 10, 15, or 30 that close at least 5,000 in GCI every 6 months. That's gone way more in depth. Most people won't have is that more clear though for you, Zach?
Yeah, it's interesting, the whole, the company dollar side of everything and how things were split, because I think from the very beginning that wasn't explained very well to a lot of people that have been, I mean, with the EXP over 7 years, and I think that it wasn't explained very well in the very beginning, which is probably leading to some of this confusion that I have.
Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree. Okay, so that was a lot of information and in the deep end of the pool. However, if we want to come back and keep it really simple, the financials on what it means to be an agent at EXP in the first part that we shared, and then if someone's going to participate in revenue share, though that revenue gets paid out different. It gets paid out every month when those deals close. And so and it's an at least, right? If you're looking at those first three levels, it's an at least because the bonuses. So if you guys look and go start tracking yours from where the production closes and how much it ends up being, you'll see that the bonuses that come into 1, 2, and 3 are pretty significant. And why is that important? Because most agents aren't here to build organizations. They're here to sell real estate. So if they, because of their influence, have agents that come over, it just means all of that is essentially money that's going to flow to them. And the bonuses that come from that is going to flow to them. And so right out of the gate, you're having an agent that, never underestimate the difference that 200, 5,000 or 500, $1,000 a month can mean for somebody that's coming to them outside of a commission. All right. So if we put a bow on the psychology of handling objections and we go back to the fact that objections are indeed interest, and we know that objections are interest, and then we deal with the underlying human needs that need to be satisfied of having someone be confident about change because they're moving into a vision for the future that is clear with a clear path to success and how they do that. Any loss of control that might come up for them is understanding they're having full control over their business and what they want to do, their brand, and they're just working within a platform that is going to give them opportunities to build and create something outside of where they're at now. Any misperceptions that they have that could be driving an objection is just from their mouth, understanding what they understand it to be, and then helping to get that clear. Past experience, finding out wherever the breakdown was in that past experience and having an active plan to show how that can be different moving forward, where to plug into, what to do to grow. And then peer influence, and how you deal with peer influence. At the end of the day, I love my broker. I'm friends with these people here. Great. What is it? Where are they going to be in relation to the quality of life that you're living, the lifestyle that you have, and the legacy that you leave for your family? And are you willing to trade that off for the feel good of, whatever those peers are or saying now? Or do you really want to create and build something? And then the risk versus benefits, when you can show someone that the risk is actually not being here. It's not about selling all the features and the benefits. The risk is, what if all you ever have is your commission? And we can go into this in a different conversation, but that is a risk when you look at being able to build something versus sell something. And then the need for validation, this goes away the more people you introduce them to on third-party validation calls and they get connected into the community where they're seeing value, experiencing value, hearing different people's stories, and finding inspiration in where they want to go that they've not yet been, and people they can identify with in doing that. So when we look at the psychology of those things and how you would address those things, then you've got some tools in the background that I shared with you today, which are the visuals of just how to walk through and have a conversation. For somebody that's not coming over here primarily as a builder, I wouldn't even go through the revenue share stuff because it's too much. It's too overwhelming. I wouldn't recommend going through it at all. So back to Lisa that sells cars or that has a history selling cars. I just let them talk about the benefits of it, the idea of it, and what that means. And if someone's a serious builder and wants to understand all of that, they can, but that's going to be generally too much information to someone. It'll blow them out of the water. It will become interesting when they receive their first revenue share check and they go, oh, what's this? Right? And it's real and it's an extra. And then those things, those pieces start to come together. All right. We're at the top of the hour. Thank you all for being here. I feel like this was a very full content call. So hopefully you guys got some things that you can walk away with. And I will stay on for 2 to 3 minutes just in case there's any questions, clarifications, or anything that anyone wants to dial in before we say goodbye. As a side note, people don't people, if they're going to get signed up for stock at the end of closings, their transactions, they have to do it. It's not in the ICA any longer. It's an additional step afterwards. So for people that you're personally sponsoring, that is important for them. Make sure that step has actually happened because it is not in the initial ICA part of the onboarding process now.
Casey, did you say the 3 ways were the answer to the need validation?
Yes.
Okay.
Multiples, and do them with different people, multiple third-party validation. An event could be validation. Jumping on a training call could be validation. We're going to have a great call this Friday, the Free Friday coaching call. I'm going to be interviewing Jesse Zagorski, and he's going to be talking about, he's going to be on a couple of great topics. So that they're the promos and empire builders. Shay, yes.
Hey, what'd you just say about the stock ICA? Whatever you just said, they have to sign up additionally for what? For the
If they want to have the 5%, the company keep the 5%. Now, Selena, what step is it in onboarding? Because it's no longer upfront.
Yeah, it's guys. So it used to be when you were doing your ICA online, you could go ahead and choose right then to sign up for the 5%. It's now in the onboarding worksheet, like day 2 and further down on the Google Doc. So it's several steps down and most people don't get to it. We're finding more and more people are not actually signing up to get the 5% stock at closing commission checks, right? So we're just double check to make sure that's happening. It's no longer at the very beginning when you're signing up and doing everything in the ICA. You're signing up.
The ICA is the application.
Yes.
Yeah.
ICA is the application.
Yes. Yeah.
And one other thing for those. I'm getting feedback. Just so you know, this is happening and it wasn't previously happening. Laura, thank you for going in and doing this. Anybody new that joins the organization in our 7 levels is getting added to a spreadsheet and getting a call from me. That's a welcome call. And when I'm doing that, I've got the sponsor name so I can acknowledge and edify you as the sponsor for them in EXP, and then finding out if they want to focus, where they want their areas of focus to be while they're here. And so depending on if they are clicking or in that conversation, if it's production, if it's growing an organization or what that is, then they're getting the subsequent an email to get plugged into Empire Builders and everything that we're offering. So I'm making all these outbound calls to your people that are going to be coming into the organization. And some of them are not knowing about FastCap, and we're getting them plugged into FastCap. The February 12th one's happening in the evenings, and then March 5th will be the next one that happens as the daytime one, and an additional layer. So we're working really proactively to have retention be in onboarding and have that be, additional support for you guys.
So are you doing, hi Casey, are you doing that to everybody in your organization? Like everybody?
If they're in our 7 levels and I can see them, that's everybody. So there was like 68 new people that onboarded in January. So yes, everybody's getting a call from me.
Gotcha. Because I think I'm your 6th level down, right? So
anyone that you personally sponsor. Victoria got a call. There she is.
I got one too. You called one of my agents, which was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so these different layers, right? So this is the validation piece, more and more validation, right? So use me for third-party validation calls. I'm making the outbound calls for the introductions. I'm following it up with a video message if I miss them, because they've got to opt in to be able to see the emails. 9 times out of 10, they'll end up in the spam or junk. So we're really working to improve how we support, the growth for everyone. If it's outside and I'm not able to see, agents on 8, 9, 10, 11 and below, those aren't getting touched personally by me, but this is a system that if you want it, you can duplicate. We're happy to share the spreadsheet with you. All right. Thank you all for being here. I feel like this was drinking from a fire hose and you might need a nap now, but there's a recording. So appreciate you all. Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, free Friday coaching call. Jesse Zagorski. It'll be a fun interview.
Thank you.
Great day, everyone.
Hey, Casey, do you have a couple minutes? I want to show you something real quick.
Yeah, I'll stay on.